Today is Thursday, March 18th. Yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and I completely forgot about it. I didn't realize it was St. Patrick's Day until I was on a Zoom meeting and saw 3/4 of the participants had something green on, a green t-shirt, green suspenders, shamrocks in the background. I just forgot about it this year. It's been that kind of a year, as I'm sure many of you can relate to. What I haven't forgotten is that we are in the season of Lent, and in a couple of weeks, we will be entering Holy Week, beginning with Palm Sunday, and the week services on Monday, Thursday at 7 p.m., Good Friday service at 7 p.m., and then a Easter Sunday morning service. We will not be having a sunrise service outside. The worship committee, in discussing this and looking at the resources we have in terms of people resources, felt that we just were not able to get all the pieces put together to do something outside early and then still do another service later on in the morning inside. So that's going to be different this year. We will be having Easter service, one Easter service, and it will be in the sanctuary this year and live streamed. That's another thing. It would be very challenging to live stream outside. So just with all of the different logistics, we did not have the manpower, person power to organize everything and to get everything taken care of that we would need to cover. Nevertheless, as we have learned in the last year, though things may be different and not what we have seen in the past or done in the ways that we've done in the past, we are able to think things through and to consider not only what we are doing, but why we are doing it. Why did we have an outdoor service? It was to celebrate Easter, and that we can still do together. We can still celebrate Easter morning. And so this is the kind of thinking and attitude we have had to acquire throughout the last year and going forward into the future. When we are not able to do things in the ways we have before, we need to stop and think about what we are doing and why we are doing it. To remember that the church exists because Christ has called the church into being, and Christ lives and is with us still to carry out the ministry we are called to. Along those lines, as you wait for your new pastor, you have said in your mission study that you want it to be a congregation that is family-oriented, family ministry is important to you. What you need to pray about and to think about is how you are going to provide that ministry, because a new pastor can't do it all. A new pastor cannot be all things to all people, do 20 different activities. That's where all of the gifts and the talents of everyone in the church family comes into play. So we might see some folks getting involved that weren't involved before. And some of the people that were before may continue, and some may say, it's time for me to rest. I have done a lot and I can do a little more, but not what I did in the past. So these are all changes in terms of looking forward and growth opportunities for disciples of Christ in the church family, and for providing rest to many of the faithful. So we are looking at moving forward step by step. And while we are not going to be able to reopen totally in the way that we would like, we continue to provide some opportunity, and those guidelines and those procedures are in place. The session has acted to provide a way for small groups of the church to gather if they desire. So all of your committees are aware of this. Christian Ed is aware of this, the mission committee, evangelism, and the worship committee, yes, is aware of it. And so within the worship committee, folks who like to sing are needing to wait until we get a new music person on board, excuse me. So even that, the personnel committee is taking a look at how that job description is evolving. We are going to be looking for just a choir director, because we will not be able to have the full choir in a space, one, to practice, and two, to sing on Sunday morning. And so this new music director is going to need some other kinds of skills and experiences to accommodate the conditions that we find ourselves in today and in the future. This person's going to need to be comfortable with working online. This person's going to need to be comfortable leading, singing, because if we continue to do the virtual worship, we do need a song leader, and we are thankful to the volunteers, all those who are willing to lead music and the congregational singing. But you know, the pastor is going to want to choose some hymns that you may not be familiar with. And that music director is going to need to lead those songs so that you all can learn them. So these are some of the things we need to think about that you'll be facing in the future going forward. This is a time of looking at growth opportunities within leadership and within your volunteering and within the gifts of the membership. I thought about this very clearly recently as Quilt of Valor is looking at, well, when can we come? And if we do come, how many of us can the space accommodate? And how do we do that safely to abide by the church's guidelines? Okay, if Quilt of Valor is thinking about that, I asked, where did Quilts of Valor come from? How are they a ministry or a group of the church? And so I learned about the history that there were some women, members of the church, who wanted to be involved in this organization. And so they asked the church and the session and all of that, and so joined this Quilts of Valor and asked if they could use a space at the church to meet for their sewing, their quilting. And Presbyterian Women supports this group. Presbyterian Women sponsored them initially, and then also helps them out with resources in terms of materials and things that they need to stay active within the larger group of this organization, Quilts of Valor. And so I thought about that. I thought, okay, if that started with members in the past, given the interest and the skill set of those members, what will be the new kinds of activities and groups of the church? We don't know yet, because we have not heard those emerging interests, those people with particular skills and interests wanting to get together to do something. And we've been hampered by the pandemic because we cannot gather in groups, particularly groups of strangers. We're going to need to start small, start within the congregation, discussing what it is that the Spirit of God is about among us. What are the interests? What are the gifts that God can use in a ministry that can grow and flourish out of GPC? And that's the way we need to begin to look at those growth opportunities, because you're not going to replicate what was in the past. Any church who tries to replicate what they have had in the past is gonna cease to exist, because your new members are not going to be the same members. They're not going to be exactly the same people and with the same skills. Some of that may be the same. Some of that activity may be carried forward into the future, and some of it may end, and there may be some new activity that we have to look forward to in the future. Some of it may have to be with online activities, using technologies in new ways, because after all, the younger generations live their lives online, a great deal of their lives online, with all kinds of interest groups and activities and online gatherings that they've learned to accommodate in their own lives. And that's not going to be the whole life of the church online. No. God has made us corporal beings, body, flesh and blood, with emotions and minds that function best when we are together in person and when we are active with each other. That's how God created us. And so this in-person activity is never going to go away. It's just going to need to be done differently. So I'm looking forward. Well, I won't be with you. I said I'm looking forward to that, but I look forward to see how that will work out with your new pastor, because I won't be a part of that. We don't know when the new pastor's coming, but we know eventually they will be here. But so that's the only reason I bring this up, so that you will begin to think as a church together in your conversations, thinking about how do we begin to look forward to the next phase. Okay, if the ground has been dormant throughout this pandemic year, very little activities, the ground was dormant while there were seeds of talents and resources laying still. Once the new pastor comes and begins to work with the soil and the seed, and we pray that God's Spirit nurtures the seed, what growth will come for GPC and the ministries of GPC? That's how we want to begin to look at moving forward. Again, not to replicate the past, but to start with where you are and say, Lord, what do you have in store for us? One example, recent example, the mission committee taking a look around at the neighborhood and going to Burke Elementary School and saying, is there any way we can help you? Principal said, well, we've had to shut down the water fountains. We could use some bottled water. And so the mission committee stepped up. And I'm sure you've read about that, in different articles within the weekly e-newsletter or in Crossroads. It may have been highlighted that now the mission committee is able to supply cases of water to Burke Elementary School so that the teachers do not have to buy that out of pocket. That's one way that GPC can reach out to help and to share the love of Christ in a meaningful way with neighbors. That's what it's going to take. Pausing to say, how can we help? And the mission committee is busy looking at other ways to interact with EVMC, East Valley Men's Center, UMOM, and UMOM in particular, and more broadly, Abounding Service. We support the work of Abounding Service, but maybe we can support them more by learning more about their activities. Mike Gallagher serves on their board, and he shares articles from time to time about the work of Abounding Service, and I'm sure you've read some of that. We can pray for the work of Abounding Service. If nothing else, we can pray, and God will reveal and make known to us other ways in which our gifts, our time, talent, and treasure can be used to glorify God and to share good news. We want to act in our lives, act out the love of Christ in our lives, as well as proclaiming a message of Christ's love for everyone. So I just wanted to highlight these particular thoughts and ideas with you as we enter into another week. Beginning next week, we'll be 1 week away from Holy Week, 1 week this Sunday from Palm Sunday. So I look forward to joining you, whether virtually or in person, in worship this Sunday.